I'd love to tell you the story about Renville County. It's a wonderful agricultural-based community that's been established and settled for about 100 years.
My calling in this whole process is really based on the fact that I believe in prevention. And the leading cause of death in the nation, in the public health world, is tobacco, obesity, and alcohol use. Those are the top three. So as I looked at the problem, and especially with youth, if we can do anything to help them in not developing chronic diseases or even death, early death from these factors, I want to do that. That's where we should be putting our money and our efforts.
Renville County is a great place to raise a family, but historically it has had its problems with alcohol being a fabric and part of the community, especially with the youth. It's a common place to have alcohol in many of the city celebrations, at the county fair, most every place you go.
Our community, like most rural communities, have had their challenges with kids using alcohol and drugs. Primarily alcohol. It's a real accepted form of entertainment for youth in the rural areas.
It is in our nature here to, alcohol is so ingrained. And so breaking and chipping away at that community norm has been, to me, one of the biggest struggles.
We had our challenge of addressing underage alcohol use and access, and one of the best tools that we were given was the Positive Community Norms media campaign to try and address this.
Our mission is to really look at the strengths that children, kids, and families bring to the overall focus of services that we may provide. So the notion of the science of the positive is one that fit very well with our mission, helped set a framework for actually implementing the grant. What we did as part of that was to take that to our leadership as well and to look at that framework of spirit, science, and action. And the spirit fit very well based on the fact that we're a collaborative with multiple members. They bring the spirit really with them, and we try to tie into that underlying base of commitment. The science is something that we spend a lot of time with in our organization, looking at and testing children and families based on what their behaviors are, if they have alcohol use patterns, if they have behavioral needs, if they have mental health concerns. And so we do a lot of measurement, and ties back nicely again to some of our organizational core. And the action is really something that is put into play through the programs, the grants, the projects that are implemented by our own staff as well as our wider population and partnership.
I love the process of working with the kids to bring about information that was very positive about them and framing the whole community in a very positive way.
Because Renville County West has less than 500 kids K through 12, most kids seem to follow trends just so that they can be part of the majority. So because most people are following trends, if there's a perception, everyone really just embraces that perception because they want to follow the trend.
We took information from the Most of Us survey, and then we tried to formulate a message based on the results we get, and then we pilot test it throughout our TDA group, which is Teens Against Drugs and Alcohol.
And what we learned was that most kids thought that all the other kids were drinking, but the truth of the fact is, what we learned, most kids are not drinking. 76% of Renville County West students do not drink in a typical month.
It was so great to get the support of the stakeholders in our community, and especially our media. They made a big difference in getting the word out to our community through the radio ads and also through editorials in our paper about the Most of Us campaign.
One of the things that we did was we got students involved in the message, and that was fantastic, working with the students. It became students talking to students, students talking to parents. One of the things we did with those student-based messages, we placed them during the time in the morning, right around 7:30 a.m., when kids and parents were eating breakfast or on their way to school, getting ready for school. That is when those ads played. And so we targeted students specifically and families getting ready for school. And that worked very, very well, using the students themselves for the message for RAPAD and the Most of Us campaign.
Like the phases of any journey that you go through, there's many things that happen along the way. One of the things that happened with us, as far as the challenge goes, is to have the youth actually believe the new data that you're presenting to them that most kids weren't using. Because it's always been framed very negatively. And as we're trying to frame and show the community positively, they had a hard time believing that most kids didn't use.
A lot of conversation was going on all around town and around our community. And a lot of people were saying, that can't be true. I mean, I know people that drink. But we took the test again the year after, and we continued to see lower numbers of students drinking. And it really changed people's perception. They thought, wow, the majority really isn't drinking.
This process has changed myself for probably the rest of my life. I'll never look at a problem again and only look at what has gone wrong, you know, who's using, I'm always going to be looking at what can we take out of this that is positive. How can we turn this back to the community of something you can be proud of? You can be proud of your students, your children. You can be proud of your community because most of the kids are not using. It's a wonderful process to bring your community through. They won't be hanging their head in shame. They'll be very, very proud of themselves.
To me, one of the most important things about being in the Teens Against Drugs and Alcohol group is being able to go through all the processes of making the posters and being able to influence people. I think that makes me feel really good, like I'm actually changing something and making the world a better place, and I think I'll take that with me where I go in life.
Science of the positive is a best practice method, and it is refreshing not to be looking so much at the punitive side of things or even a specific program, but really looking at a way to transform the community. Not just change it, but truly transform it into a different way of thinking. And we can address the problem by doing that. And that's what's exciting to me. Absolutely exciting.